Public Interest SA has expressed concerns about what it calls attempts by union Numsa's attempts to downplay allegations of fraud and corruption within BMW's employee medical aid scheme. Workers at the German car maker are on strike after allegedly being investigated for medical aid fraud. Public Interest SA founder Tebogo Khaas joins us for more. Tebogo, I appreciate your time today. Now, can you elaborate on the specific allegations of fraud and corruption involving BMW's medical aid scheme? And what role did the health practitioners play in these activities?
Well, thanks, Hugo, for having me. Certainly, very little is known in the public domain as to what the officials themselves from the medical aid scheme have done, but certainly there are allegations of fraud, which are currently and corruption, which are currently the subject of an investigation. What is just appalling, or rather surprising, is that we see whataboutism on the part of Numsa and certainly their Secretary General, Jim, whereas they ought to be focusing on the actual wrongdoing and rooting out those responsible for the alleged fraud that is currently under investigation.
Now, you as Public Interest SA have expressed disappointment with Numsa's ambivalent responses, what you've called it. So how do you respond to criticism that Jim is deflecting responsibility and failing to hold union members accountable for what has been termed in many quarters corruption?
You know, Hugo, this is an old playbook, especially by Numsa, if I may single out Numsa as one of the unions that seems to be falling in the same trap. Whereupon, when some of their members, especially those who are office bearers, whether they're shop steward or union bosses, get to be fingered out, we found that workers' interests don't seem to come first. In other words, they would want to rally around and actually push back against such investigations, as we now see BMW Medical Aid wanting to institute. And it is very unfair and unfortunate, because the affected members, when such theft or fraud or corruption is identified and it is the members, the poorest of the poorest members, and the marginalized who actually get affected when such corruption happens. So it is a playbook that we believe that it's about time that Numsa is outed from playing, from actually reverting to every time there's such instances, and instead they must come out unequivocally in support of the investigations and efforts to root out corruption within the BMW medical aid system.
So where does one draw the line between defending the people that you represent, who are the union members, and obviously towing the line of integrity? Because we understand that there is a strike of some sort. A number of 700 has been muted, has been up for possible en masse dismissal.
Yeah, Hugo, I'm not so sure if there's any causative factor between the apparently alleged intention to dismiss 700 workers with what is currently under investigation. Because yes, the union suggests that, oh, this thing has happened 5 years ago, 2019. Why only investigate it now? It really does not matter when it started. The fact of the matter that it has been uncovered, and to use workers as fodder to actually fight other battles that are not related to what is under investigation, it is really silly and unfortunate. So we certainly find ourselves surprised as to the action that Numsa seem to be taking, which is not in the interest of those who are contributing to the medical aid, which is not in the interest of those whose futures pension funds ought to be managed prudently and without any exposure to theft or fraudulent activities, as it has been alleged. Is
Numsa and its leadership under any pressure, do you think, in taking the stance? Because ordinarily you would not expect any association reasonably to defend individuals, right, that have defrauded the very employer that's supposed to be providing their livelihood. Because what it does is it impacts other employees that are also within the covering of Numsa, or working for BMW or any other institution for that matter.
Well, there's a pattern, and what one would call a modus operandi by Jim and Numsa leadership, whereupon when they've got other issues that they ought to be sitting down with management to deal with. Use SAA as an example, when they could have sat around the table with the management at the time and resolved issues that could have avoided the laying off of thousands of employees of SAA at the time. They chose to make sure that they want to protect their interests. I want to say their interests, a few leaders' interests, not the members' interests. Whereupon eventually the whole SAA collapsed and many thousands lost their work, or hundreds of thousands lost their work. It's the same thing here, where cool heads are needed. If indeed they want to engage BMW with the issue that there might be looming retrenchments or at the plant, they should be able to seek in ways. How do we retool these individuals? How do we find other opportunities for them? How do we create employment opportunities, whether by way of creating entrepreneurship opportunities outside the environment, because they've got the skills that they can come back and actually offer certain services or products to the very same company, or even others outside of the BMW supply chain. But no, that's not what they are focusing on, because so far we haven't had Numsa saying we've been engaged with the company to see how can resolve the issue of the looming retrenchments. But instead, no. They are actually using the fact that the medical aid scheme, and by the way, the medical aid scheme, it is not BMW, it is the BMW medical aid scheme that is run at the behest or at the interest, advancing the interests of the workers. And yet they're not coming out saying, yes, we want to go about those go against those people who are behind this theft or the alleged fraud. And instead, we see them now taking up management. Management doesn't belong to that union probably. But the majority of the union members are those that are poor and who need the protection of the union. And the union is failing to do that.
So given the growing distrust in institutions like BMIS as a result of these allegations, what steps can be taken to restore workers' confidence in their medical aid schemes and in Numsa as a representative body?
Well, Hugo, to start with, we need cool heads, especially in the union environment, because when we don't have cool heads in the leadership space, and we don't have ethical leadership at that level, we don't have people who understand how their action actually contribute to the general underperformance of our economy. In other words, if we are seen as a country that is most prone to embarking on downing tools at the drop of a hat, we are not going to be inviting the necessary investment, foreign direct investment that we require as a country to grow and stabilize the economy. But we need to ensure that union leadership need to ensure that they not only act in the interest of their workers, but also in the interest of the nation as a whole. BMW plays a very pivotal role in our economy, especially in the car manufacturing sector, where we are exporting a lot of cars and earning much needed foreign exchange, hard currency, which we cannot do without. And it is about time that we have, as leadership, people in the unions who've got a better grasp of what their reckless action may actually cause across the economy and other sectors of the nation.
So who should be holding Numsa accountable for their actions in a situation such as this one?
Sadly, it's the workers themselves, but probably the Stockholm syndrome, because Evan Jim specifically, I'll single him out, has been sailing closer to the wind for many years. And a lot of allegations have been made around him that are swelling, including the gifts, if you remember the gifts or laptop gifts and other benefits that he derived around the 360 I think insurance company. Those allegations have been swelling, and he always seems to be about himself. He always seems about what is it that they can gain themselves. If it means entrenching themselves to be leaders of unions for as long as they live, I think that's what they want to do. And we need to ensure that workers actually wake up and stand up against these individuals, because they've got their interest at heart. They don't have their interest at heart at all. And about time that workers themselves wake up, because there's nothing that you and I can do for as long as we're not members, because they've got a defined membership base, members who contribute to their, who keep on electing the same people again and again and again.
So how do you think Irvin Jim's leadership of Numsa is perceived in light of this controversy? Now obviously, we are going to ask Numsa to respond to some of the comments that you're making this evening, Tebogo.
Yeah, Evan Jim doesn't seem to know exactly what he wants to do. First of all, you would recall in, I think, not this election, the other election, he formed a party, he wanted to go to parliament. And clearly, nobody bought his message, and that is why he never made it, not even 0.1% of the electorate cast any votes for him. Because he's got nothing to offer outside the fiefdom that he's now presiding over, where he's got the hegemony over workers' resources, over the direction in which the metal union should be going, in a world where we ought to be creating more jobs, especially manufacturing base, especially the steel manufacturing space, whereupon we've got the likes of China who's long eaten our lunch, and we don't have a strategy where we need unions to understand what it is that we are facing as a part of the global village, to be able to make sure that we go back and do the basics right. How do we revitalize ISCO or whatever it's called these days? How do we make sure that there's more beneficiation of the metals, the metals that we keep on exporting? We don't see those conversations happening in the public domain. It's about time we have those conversations openly and without fear or favor. But it's seemingly those who've got the gumption to rise above the parapet seem to be sidelined or called names. And it is about time that the likes of Evan Jim at least have a modicum of a sense of shame, and realize that their actions are not in the interest of their workers. Their actions are not in the interest of South Africa at large. So we have to have a perspective where we measure ourselves against similar countries who are competing for the same opportunities in the global economy, and we are not actually focusing on that. We keep on lamenting that government ought to be doing X, Y, and Z. Government can only do so much insofar as providing an enabling environment, but we need to ensure that we inculcate a mindset of good stewardship, diligence in our effort application to work, and make sure that everybody puts their shoulder behind the wheel. When people report are at the stations as and when they are required, not to come to use former President Thabo Mbeki's words, not to have workers, the type of workers, caliber of workers who come to work late, do as little work as possible, and go home as early as possible, but expect the maximum payout without actually adding value to their employer. It's about time we have those serious conversations. And the likes of Evan Jim, unfortunately, don't seem to be likely to heed any such call for those conversations to happen.
Now, very quickly as we wrap up, these investigations confirm widespread fraud within the medical aid scheme. What sort of reforms do you think should be implemented within both BMAS and Numsa to prevent such incidents from happening in the future?
Yeah, you see, we need men and women of good ethical rectitude. We need people who are not venal by nature, who are not susceptible to being looking after their own interests, to go on stealing or doing things that are wrong. We need them to make sure that those individuals are the ones who actually represent workers in the fora or in bodies such as BEMA, which is the medical aid for BMW employers. And we don't see that happen. I can use many examples. I can throw in a Transnet as an example, where you find that union performance or the representatives in such forum where they're required to represent the interests of the workers don't seem to be there. They're always all about themselves. So we need to ensure that there's a change in leadership, there's a change in attitude, there's a change in aptitude if we are to rise to another altitude as a country.